Welcome back, everyone. This is a Divine 1 game that I pulled from Dota Buff, played on the European servers, and today's replay analysis is going to focus on team fighting. There's a lot that goes into team fighting, and it begins from the draft. Just taking a look at the heroes that are going to be lining up against each other, you can start to make predictions about how you should play, what to expect, whether you should have a standard item build or whether you should deviate for something else. Taking a look at Dire first, Lone Druid Bear, the threat of RP, Timber Saw, a lot of great chase potential there, Monkey King as well. So this draft I would classify as a mobile draft. Yes, CM's going to have some difficulties keeping up, but you don't want to get stuck in a bad place with this bear phasing after you, rooting you, Monkey King getting on top, Timber Saw getting on top. That is something that Radiant has to look out for, is if they're ever outnumbered, they're going to be chased down really easily. On the Radiant side, you've got the threat of Chronosphere to counter the threat of RP. You have Pudge Hooks, great for pulling people out of position. And there is a respectable amount of burst on the Radiant side. It's not tremendous, but it is enough so that one hook on Monkey King, certainly on a support, could mean the end of them. And of course, you're going up against a Pugna. You have to have Decrepify in the back of your mind. When you're a squishy support going up against the bear, you have to have that in mind. Pugna thankfully deals with the bear very well with Decrepify. Is Lone Druid or is Monkey King going to deal with that Decrepify on their own? So the only deviations that I'd be considering here is a Nullifier on the Monkey King, although Diffusal is part of his natural build order. So that could be a Disperser to remove Decrepify on himself. But if he wants to target enemy heroes, and I could easily imagine situations where Void Spirit gets Decrepified, that's where the Nullifier comes in handy. Lone Druid as well, since your bear is probably going to be a target for a lot of Decrepifies, this is definitely a game where you want to have the Disperser as well. And spoiler alert, take a look over here, guys. There's one Nullifier on the Monkey King, so again, that's great if somebody you're chasing gets Decrepified, but there's nothing to deal with a teammate. And so Lone Druid, maybe the perfect split here would have been Lone Druid having the Disperser and Monkey King having the Nullifier. Two covers against Decrepify for different situations. It's not overkill. Nullifier is also great for dealing with things like the buffs from Pipe, the buffs from Greaves. So I do like this build. I just wish that Lone Druid would have stepped it up, tailoring his build a little bit more to Pugna. But again, I'm speaking knowing a little bit of the outcome that Radiant wins. We'll see what actually happens here. Other than that, standard builds across the board are going to be just fine. And my advice for any of you is when you're doing this sort of prediction thing and reading the draft is don't get too caught up in it, right? You want to remain flexible. Depending on how the lanes go, whether you get ahead with a lot of kills or someone does really well with a lot of ganks, you can tailor your build, pivot to something that puts you ahead even further. Or if you're a support and you find yourself on the losing end of the confrontations, suddenly you've got to maybe pivot to more defensive items or go all in for something that might provide a bit of catch. For example, if Timber Saw starts zipping through the fights too much and you can't hold him down, maybe you've got to think about, can I get an Atos in? That is just about it before we actually start taking a look at the team fights themselves. Of course, the only other thing I'll say is one rule of team fighting is knowing whether you should or should not team fight, period. And in this game, I would say that's going to be dictated by the Chronosphere cooldown. On the other side, perhaps the reverse polarity cooldown, but I would say more in a losing scenario. Otherwise, as long as you have Timber and Monkey being empowered by Magnus, you can look for fights or some engagements almost at any point in the game. I've skipped ahead to 21 or so minutes into the game. It's a good place to start taking stock of these heroes. You can see there's a little bit of gathering up on the one side, and we might have a team fight potentially break out here. Pretty straightforward so far. Monkey King's ultimate is still not up, and maybe the other team knew that from their previous engagement, so they decided to push through the towers a little bit. Magnus also did not have RP available. It was a good time to gather some heroes and finally take out this tier 1 tower in mid. So a nice move by Radiant, getting their forces together while cooldowns are not available, and pushing forward. Void comes in. Maybe he wasn't a part of the last fight. I didn't watch that part of the replay. But a great use of Chronosphere there just to secure a couple more kills. Those guaranteed kills... Oh, nice. Turns into another one. Those guaranteed kills could be 2 towers here. Okay, so they did take down 2 towers. At this point, I would just disperse. You know what? You don't have Chronosphere and Void. Oh. Okay, interesting little play. So what I thought looked like an early jump by Magnus actually caught heroes unaware. It was a good play, brought them into the base. Void just kind of watching. Again, probably feels paralyzed without his Chronosphere. So good play by CM and Magnus to do a little bit of cleanup. That's why you can't get greedy, especially early on in the game. So you guys don't have your cooldowns up. You don't have Chronosphere. The enemy team's respawning. No point in taking that risk and even lingering around here longer than you need to. The CM, the Frostbite timing was perfectly timed with this blink by Magnus. And so even if Void said, hey, CM's behind us, well, it was already too late. So good plays. So Dire used that little bit of time where Void still did not have Chronosphere to regroup and take Roche. Radiant now just got the notification that Dire's killed Roche and picked up the Aegis. And how are they going to play this? Is Void going to say, hey, let's go, Chronosphere's back up, we can take a fight here? All right, let's take a look at positioning. We have everybody spread out. Ideally, I would like this Rubik Burst or the Void Spirit Burst to also be combined with Faceless Void or the Pudge Hook and Dismember. So over here, you have a lot of your burst damage on the Radiant side, but who's going to hold those heroes down? Rubik can lift someone in the air and Void can taunt them. You know, that's enough of a stun or a snare, so to speak, to hold a Crystal Maiden, but it's not enough if you want to kill the Lone Druid, or it's not enough if you want to kill the Monkey King. Maybe. You don't know unless you try, but I would say it's not guaranteed. So this positioning by Radiant, I don't like it. I would have everybody fall back towards their towers. And Dire here, the key to their team fight, if it happens, or at least the key to taking a good team fight, is staying loosely grouped up. Not this close together, because a Chronosphere is very effective against them, but in a loose ball formation, so to speak. Actually, before I press play, there's something that I can quickly talk about here, and that is the shape of team fights. And so that is something that is determined by the hero's mobility. It's determined by their abilities as well. The shape of the team fight is something that I sometimes think about with how I'm going to be spread out, what hero, if I'm a support, I'm going to be tethered to in the fight, if I'm going to be tethered to them, or if I'm going to be far to the side and wanting to blink in. So against a team that can chase you down with the Monkey King, the Timbersaw, and the Lone Druid, it typically is good to have a tighter formation against them. But again, you have this RP that could completely punish you for that. So this is the kind of game where I would want to stay spread out, but in a moment's notice, be able to tighten up on the Radiant side if need be. So Blink Dagger, if it's hard getting a Blink Dagger. Force Staff, absolutely. Just so I can quickly reinforce a teammate if they're getting chased. And of course, Force Staff, the defensive utility against these heroes is pretty good too. The other aspect of discussing the shape of a team fight, you can kind of see it taking place already here. This is a very wide team fight that the Radiant is setting up for. Again, in some ways it benefits you because you get to avoid an RP being devastating, but is it too wide that you don't get your damage in on one hero when you hook them or when you snare them? Let's say I am a Dire hero. I'm either the carry Monkey King or the support Crystal Maiden. And I know that my opponents are spread out like this. We got Rubik at least on the top side. Pudge is visible here on the bottom. Okay, so I know my opponents are spread out. How do I want to play into that? Ideally, I'm not just running through the middle in a way that gets me collapsed on, especially if I'm my team's carry. I want to consider tree dancing towards the bottom, tree dancing towards the top, and try to take the fight from the outside. Now, at this point, I'm talking about taking an engagement based on positioning rather than focusing for a certain hero. In an ideal world, You might be able to catch Faceless Void out towards the side, but I don't even think the Dire has lockdown for him or an Orchid or anything like that. No, they don't. So even if you do catch Faceless Void, it's a bit of a dubious situation because he can turn around, Chronosphere you, and then his teammates jump in afterwards. So maybe in this type of formation, I mean, it's a bit of a gamble. Go for the squishier hero, though. Go for this core Rubik over here. Try to bring your team up towards the top side. Don't necessarily take this staircase here. Okay, that goes for this whole Dire team. Don't run into the middle of a spread out formation. Let's see what happens. Okay, so blinking forward, chasing the Pudge. Radiant decides, no, let's get out of here. Oh, Timbersaw went towards the top. He's fighting these two. And wow, this actually ended up being perfect for Dire. Void deciding that that's not a team fight he wanted to take. Fine, fair enough. I didn't like it either from the Radiant. I would have backed off as soon as that Aegis notification went off. Timber, of course, the hero with the pipe, going after these two magic damage dealers, worked out perfectly. So Dire, well done. They didn't walk through the middle. They went with some speed and aggression. And yeah, very nice. Okay, so now it's pretty straightforward. If you are the Dire side, you just take this push as far as you can go. Again, don't spread out too much. As long as you've only got the bear, maybe the Monkey King in as well, Timber can always blink past the Chronosphere. You should be able to take this tower without losing anybody. CM there. Oh, okay, interesting. CM blinking forward there. Not a bad idea. I think they saw Faceless Void is not there on the bottom side. Who knows whether they have any idea about his TP status. But good to make these plays, catching one more core. Well, Void's not there to punish you. And actually, by Faceless Void, just the fact that he showed himself not in the area, well, it's the combination of things. He can show himself, and then Dire's going to take this tier 2 for free. But him showing himself plus Rubik exposing himself here led to Rubik dying. So you can't do both. You can't try to cover the creep wave here as Rubik and let the team know that Faceless Void is not there. Here we are now in the 30-minute range. You can see that the net worths have changed a little bit through some back and forth skirmishes where, honestly, it wasn't well played by either side. There was a lot of overextending and splitting up. CM, for example, in one of the engagements, she just blinked into the enemy line and cast her Freezing Field. She got picked up. The Dire got split up. And Void just kept on getting a couple heroes in Chrono. Died once or twice himself, but you see that it was enough to climb up in the net worth. So here we are now. Everyone's a little bit stronger. And should there be any key items on certain heroes? This build right here, I like sitting back if I have a Solar Crest because I want to get a couple of casts of this off in one team fight. And if I have the BKB, you know, that's a little bit antithetical to this Solar Crest playstyle that I'm describing right now. The BKB almost assumes that I'm going to be going in and I'm going to be trying to make a big Freezing Field play. And does my team need that to win the team fight? No, not when you have Timbersaw, Lone Druid Bear, RP, and Monkey King dealing out damage. So this is not exactly a winning recipe for the Crystal Maiden over here. Again, you want to sit back, you want to cover heroes who maybe get chronoed. Can you quickly throw a Glimmer Cape on them? Might not save them, especially later on in the game. What about for yourself, you get something like the Aeon Disc, so that if you happen to get chronoed, it's not the end of the world. Void also is playing without a BKB. If you recognize this as a support, you could be really cheeky and you could have a Yule Scepter. Send him up in the air when he chronos. That wastes a couple of seconds of his Chronosphere duration. Quick item check on the rest of the teammates. Monkey King, he's going for that Nullifier now. Lone Druid and his Bear, he's gone for this Deso Basher build. Now into a BKB for the Bear. Is the BKB necessary? Perhaps. That's one way of dealing with some of the lockdown on the enemy team. I just kind of have my mind on this Diffusal Disperser, though. It sounds good to me. I would like to see it in action, but he's not going to go that route. Magnus, again, the supports on the Dire side, they're just not going full support or full utility. So this Kaya and turning it into a Kaya and Yasha, what, to do more RP damage, to do more shockwave damage? Again, your team has plenty of damage. This is not providing adequate cover. I would like a Force Staff. I would like the Yule Scepter that I talked about. And Timber Saw, sure, these items are fine. BKB is something to consider. Finishing the Sange here so you get the status reduction, status duration reduction. That'd be nice. Instead, going into the Hex now. Hexing Void before he gets a Chrono off to blow him up, sure. Hexing Void Spirit so he can't run away from you and you can blow him up, sure, I get it. You may as well just finish this or even get a BKB right now. Taking a look at the Radiant side, we've got Pudge here. Egg's Pipe. Pipe mitigates some of the damage. Good if CM gets her ulti off. You know, it doesn't really matter, honestly, what Pudge is building here. This is fine. Pugna, very nice support items. I like that. He's doing his job perfectly. Rubik, the core Rubik. He's having some fun with the Maelstrom here. I'm not sure what the idea is there. If he steals in power, is he going to be whacking people with his auto attacks? Maybe. And Faceless Void. This is a fair build. Again, this could be because he's just taken stock of how the enemies are playing against him, and maybe he decides, I don't need a BKB. They're really just rooting me, and so the Manta's enough for that. Yeah, that's fair. If he feels like he's got no reason to go for the BKB and that Manta is plenty for the time being, okay, I can respect that in this game. In this game, it's okay. And lastly, the Void Spirit. He has a Halberd. That's a cool item. He's having some fun with a bit of a different build here. I like it. Void Spirit is one of those heroes that you can get away with a lot of different items on. It'd be nice to see a Shiva's as well. He's going for the BKB next, which is also okay. Look, if any player ever feels like they need a BKB, you know what? I respect it. If that gets you team fighting a little bit safer, a little more confidently, go for it. It'd be cool to see a Shiva's at some point, though. So the teams aren't fully grouped up yet. It looks like Radiant is ready to go and be the aggressor here. Void is at the front. Void is a little too far ahead. They should know that there's some dire support here, and I don't necessarily mean it's the CM here, but they should know that there's some dire heroes here in the area. And this is already far too much separation. The Dire team has no idea that the Radiant heroes are this far away from Void. If they see Void moving up, the assumption is probably that they're just behind him here. Magnus is now coming over to be able to deal with something, and he's probably thinking about blinking on in the back row. How could you know that this is the situation? CM, it'd be nice to have these smokes in her inventory instead of the wand right now, so that she can maybe get an observer further ahead. You see there's no observer in her inventory though. So do you even take this fight? If you are Dire side, your tier 1 tower barely has any HP, and you have no vision of the Radiant team. I don't think I take this fight in case it becomes very apparent that we have the numbers here. Let's see what happens. Okay. Blinking away, respecting the Void. And Radiant just issued a ping on Monkey King. They saw that he was farming earlier. This is really questionable by Monkey King. This is the higher level player on the team from what I remember. Yeah, this is the immortal Monkey King. And what, it's already been at least 10 seconds that you haven't seen the Radiant heroes? Okay, good. He's not committing anymore. He's not tree dancing either, though. I don't know why he's not using tree dance here. Very nice play by the Radiant. And Monkey King, honestly, that's disappointing seeing that. That was really sloppy. He had enough time where he didn't see Radiant heroes on the map. I guess he was just being lazy about it. And you know what? Sometimes this happens when you're playing party Dota. You're not playing solo queue. I'm sure he knows what the right play is there, and it's to give the enemy team more respect. He didn't. He died. I've not skipped ahead. I've just let the game play a little bit more. And so Radiant wants to keep on going. They popped another smoke after the Monkey King kill. There's a little bit split up here, but it's okay for Void to be on his own. He could get solo RP'd. He could get burst down. But you know what? I think when you're 5v4, if you get solo RP'd, you're counting on your teammates to come in after you and to punish them for it. Dire... Look, I didn't think that the fight up here was a good one for them, and I said they should have backed off here. I really don't know what the Dire is doing right now, thinking that they should move towards where the Monkey King died. They are moving towards where they know Radiant heroes could be. They're not even occupying the high ground. They don't have vision with any observers down. Again, this is just a lack of good preparation. So another team fight point that's come up in my last couple of rants here. You guys need to be better prepared with observers, especially in these team fights where the one team fight ability, the RP or the chrono, can determine the entire outcome of that fight. You have to take it on vision. So this is just sloppy and reckless by the Dire, and I'm not going to be surprised if they just get heroes picked off here for nothing. Okay, they see Void, Void Spirit. A little bit of a committal. Like I said, even if they try to commit on the Void Spirit, Faceless Void is going to be in there with the Chronosphere afterwards, and Rubik stole the RP. Nicely done. Predictable outcome. I hope it's clear to everybody why that went the way that it did. First of all, a 4v5. Second of all, a lack of vision. Just respect the enemy team. There's no need to try to play up on that. Really, what sounds so bad about spreading out to this part of the map and to this part of the map and farming? Does that sound so bad to anybody? Okay, so I've paused it here about a minute after the last bit of action. We see Void has not gone back to heal. He decided to jump in a Roche. He obviously knows he has no chrono. Now, is he or is someone on the team keeping a timer of the Magnus RP? That's something that you definitely ought to do, especially as you expect to climb the ranks. Be more diligent about monitoring big cooldowns. They could know that RP is not up yet for a few more seconds. Regardless, let's take a look at how they're positioned for this. Pugna, for whatever reason, he's not healing Void right now. And also, I don't like Pugna's position out here on the outside. He might feel a little bit confident because his Void Spirit is up causing distraction. But you're not covered. If I'm CM, I'm probably dropping a ward right here just to see the pit a little bit. Pugna, I would like him over here. Rubik, this is fine. If you are expecting the Magnus, although in this second you are not, but if you are expecting the Magnus, I would like you to face the pit and maybe have your telekinesis primed and ready. Over here, Pudge, just keeping an eye on the side, keeping an eye on heroes who could TP in. That's fine. He doesn't necessarily have to be in position for a big hook and a big ultimate. This is okay. Radiant is a little bit spread out, but they know that the Dire is not exactly ready to punish. Again, Magnus, this is probably the worst one right here, the worst defender on the Dire side. Even to not be empowering your teammates right now. There's no need for this. So where's Monkey King? He's up here. Yeah, Monkey King has no empower buff on him. The Bear? Okay, the Bear has an empower at least, but the Bear is getting recalled towards the fight right now. I'm going to make a prediction, which is that Radiant is going to get this Roshan pretty much no problem. We'll see. We'll see if Timber can actually do something blinking in, but I feel like with Rubik lifting him off and CM, actually this could be a big ulti CM. Could this finally be the big BKB ulti by CM? Or Void just looks at her and bashes her? It'll be interesting. I think Radiant gets away with this though. There's the healing coming out now. Void with a very questionable jump. Oh, Pudge. Good play to come back in and take care of the CM before she gets her ulti off. But, all right, very interesting. I'll just pause it here in the middle. Good committal by the two cores on the Dire side over here. They got their BKBs. They went in right away. They found a core. And now they're on top of the Pugna. He can't provide any support. If I'm the Timber Saw over here, I'm expecting Magnus to die. I'm not going to help him against this many Radiant heroes over here. I'm already thinking about getting out and just helping to kill this Pugna and resetting the fight, so to speak, so that we have 3 cores versus 3 heroes over here. Okay, instead, he sticks around. Ooh, good pickup. Okay, well done by Timber. Lone Druid, a little bit of questionable micro. Oh, Timber, what are you doing? Why did you separate there? Void's dead. What are you worried about? Your cores are over here. They're chasing a kill. And they could come back and they could sandwich this Pudge. There's like a bunch of stuff that you could do differently here. Rubik is currently circling the map. I'm not really sure what he's communicating, but this play, I do not like this by the Timber Saw. I'm going to say that went better for Dire than expected because Pugna had not healed Void early on. Oh, wow. This, okay, not the best micro by Lone Druid. This is kind of inexcusable that the Dire let such a good opportunity go. And a lot of that is on the Timber. Look, you've even got the catch for your team. You've got the Hex. So, good job by Pudge saving his teammate, but just a weird turn of events there, the way that unfolded. If I'm Timber, I am wanting to get some boots of travel. I kind of want to be the one now who deals with this lane pushing in all the time. Magnus, for the time being, has gone back. He doesn't have RP. But again, these empowers are really important for your cores to do a lot of damage. So, Dire, let's see. They want to try to even up the towers a little bit. They're thinking, try to take this mid, since that's the lane that's pushing the most. How should they engage? Void, do they know he has buyback? Maybe, maybe not. But they do have to be aware of him coming back up and getting a Chronosphere off. So, push as hard as you can. Get that bear right on top of the tower. Make sure other people can't disrupt the bear. Again, let's see if Pugna actually holds off this push with his Decrepify on the bear. Okay, Void. Nothing wrong with that play. Pudge unfortunately misses a hook. Let's see how quickly Dire can do this. They're timid. All right, so my preference here would be that everyone's moved up. CM, you're not back here. And you've got to be on top of the tower with the bear right now. As it is, this time is going to expire. You got nothing done. And simply regrouping, I feel like, is wasted opportunity. But I typically play very aggressively, whether it punishes me or not. I find, like, the risk usually pays off. And it's just a playstyle preference. This is now a couple minutes forward. Radiant's decided to go try to finish the game. They're grouping up a little bit with some smoke play here. They do know that Monkey is here. I think he was seen on the minimap not too long ago. At the very least, they know that the Dire is pulled at least to the middle lane. And they're tightening up here, which is the right play to do. Tighten up even more away from where the heroes are most spread out. And the whole point of that is just that you're trying to get a 5 versus 3 or a 5 versus 4, whatever it may be. I think here they know that at best, if they see a hero right away and they blink on it, I think they know that at most it's a 5 versus 3 they're fighting. So good to play bunched up here. Even if Magnus were to get like a reverse, not reverse RP like the old ability, but even if he were to reverse the team fight with a quick RP, most of the RP's duration would be wasted by Monkey TPing in or Lone Druid TPing in. So good enough formation, I'll say, by the Radiant. And if I'm Magnus over here, this is just a waste of time and a risk that's not necessary. I know I said I like to play aggressively, but that doesn't mean doing little plays like this where you could get picked off. So if my cores do not want to be here, I don't need to be here either. It's not worth me getting jumped just so I can try to shockwave and hold the wave back a little bit. At this point, I am basically gluing myself to my cores, constantly keeping Empower up. And when the opportunity presents itself, that's when I will blink forward and get an RP. Something like this did nothing. I did not get any farm. Ooh, I have a little bit of vision in the area. You already know where the heroes are. So unnecessary risk. I really don't like the Dire formation, but what they're doing is they're conceding this tier 2 going down, and they're just trying to get a little bit of counter push in the meantime. Monkey, though, he's not pushing that split push as far as he can, and it could be because, don't forget, he got punished earlier when he was in this exact area. He didn't know where the Radiant heroes were, and he got picked off. But what I like to do is when I have one hero or one lane that's committed to this split push, like the Timber, I like to match it as a teammate of his and do it in another lane. They can only be in one lane at once, right? And if they're not, if they try to go for both of you, they might not kill either. So if my Timber's going to go for it, I'm probably going to go for it over here as well. At least with some Boundless Strike, just to quickly nuke the wave, and then I can get back. All right. Okay. So nothing is going as I expected. Rubik decided, no, we're not going to go for this push. I'm going to TP here, and I'm going to deal with this Timber Saw. A little bit unusual that they're not going for this right now. Nothing about this makes sense, right? Dire was split up, and you knew that they couldn't reinforce this tower. You were supposed to use them being split up here in the mid lane as an opportunity to do something top. And instead, you're basically giving them what they want by leaving this concentrated push on the top tower and running into mid now. Magnus, he wants to get this core kill. I think they can do it with the burst from Timbersaw, so he blew his RP. Is killing Rubik, even if you can kill him, is blowing an RP for him at this point a game changer? You still have to deal with these two cores of the two Voids. So, Void, what does he want to do? Is he going to go for it? Okay, he was a little slow there. He hesitated. He didn't get both heroes, but he got a kill. It's 4 versus 4. There's no RP. There's no Chronosphere. Pudge holding the Timber in place. Monkey, a nice 2-man stun. One to free up the Timber, and the other, he should just quickly kill this Pugna right now if he can. Kill the Pugna. Lone Druid a little late to the party, but he'll be there in time. CM should get picked off here. Yep, CM picked off. Pugna managing to run away, but Pudge picked off at least. Okay, good by the Dire. You know, these Dire heroes, they're not chasing as aggressively as I would like. I know the time dilation is a little bit annoying. There we go. There we go. Very good. Okay, just needed some cooldowns. A little bit unlucky that he got hooked. Well played by Pudge. Oh my. That was a questionable man fight with all the buybacks. Anyways, just to recap what happened there very quickly. Radiant was in good position here for a push. They knew that Dire was spread out. They did not take it. They responded to the Dire split push. They got punished for it. Dire, rightfully so, they won the engagement here. They decided to push, and then they did not respect the buybacks. So, opportunity by Radiant here, they lose it, and they make a mistake. Opportunity by Dire to punish, they take advantage of it, and then they later on make a mistake. It's amazing how even in a Divine 1 averaged out game, right? Averaged out, this is a Divine 1 skill level. A little amazing how many mistakes there are. And at this point, the only way to save the game is with some hero Dota. Magnus, you're going to have to make a play that you're not comfortable with. It's not going to be perfect, but you got to go for it. Timber trying to offer a little bit of distraction. I'm not sure why he's not piping early, him and the mag. Uh-oh. Yeah, okay, so Dire they just don't know how to hold this, but it's tough. I'm not going to say it's easy. I mean, the game is probably lost, but not the ideal way for holding it. So, that is going to lead to the end of the game. Hopefully you guys saw enough of what the team fights were like, and I was able to provide some commentary on how you could play those team fights a little bit better. What I'm left with after watching this game is that it wasn't necessarily a lot of micro mistakes and a lot of build mistakes, although still I'm a little bit hung up on that disperser, for better or for worse. There were some positioning issues for sure, but it was a lot of the preparation for the team fight. And it was a lot of the strategy that went into taking the team fights that led to the outcomes in this game. Both Radiant and Dire made some mistakes on when they chose to fight and how they chose to fight. Magnus not playing enough of that support role. Crystal Maiden as well. You saw what happened. Early in the game, her ultimate did a little bit more damage. Later in the game, the Radiant heroes shrugged it off, and they said, we're just going to eat you. We're just going to hold you down with an ultimate. We're going to stun you, and we don't care that you're separated from your team. In fact, we like that you're not playing a more traditional support playstyle. The Radiant team got too tanky. Void had some really good chronos, and they were just able to pick apart the Dire heroes. But again, the Dire made it easy for Radiant to do that. So if you have any questions about how this replay went, if you have any questions about the team fight that, you know, maybe this game did not present, please ask them in the comments. I'm happy to answer them. It's a little disappointing that I didn't get to focus on micro more, but the mistakes in this game really were strategic more than anything. And that should be a good message to you as well. How you go into the fights, when you take the fights, being able to take advantage of numbers advantages, that matters so much more sometimes than whether you RP the right heroes or whether you get the lift off at the right time. Make the fights easier on yourself by going into numbers advantages, having good positions, and making the right calls around the map. All right, so that's it for this one. Thanks everybody for watching. I will catch you in the next replay analysis. We're going to be looking at Immortals and pro players, and I'm going to be talking about what you can learn and how you can learn watching players who are better than you. Thanks everybody for watching. Bye-bye.